time went and we got in the vehicle, we found out kind of what was going on and what had happened. And my reaction wasn't good. I went numb. I was very scared.
On the 26th of April, 2018, 17-year-old Hunter Boyer of Atkins took a drive into the Ozark Mountains with a friend. The events that transpired would change his and his family's lives forever.
Well, the night we found out, me and my wife was in a restaurant in Morrilton, and we got the call that, I actually got a call from one of our friends that Hunter had fell off the mountain. I actually knew where he was at on the mountain, so I knew it was probably pretty bad, pretty serious. And I looked at her and I said, we got to go. And of course, she's asking lots of questions, and I didn't want to tell her inside the restaurant that, because I really didn't know how bad it was, but I knew where it was, so I was just assuming the worst. And we started heading out of the restaurant, and I told, once we got in the car, I said, Hunter's had an accident. Don't know how bad it is, but it's not good.
Well, I had just got out of school and I had a really big paper due and I was stressed about it, and I guess I'd been talking to him about it or whatever. And he's like, well, let's go Eno, and he said, you can work on it and I'll sit up there with you. And I was like, okay. So we went up, I guess it's kind of towards Razorback sign on Crow Mountain, somewhere up there. And we got up there and I was writing and he was being goofy and he was bored. And so he started walking around and I was like, okay. And then he kind of kept getting closer to the edge, and I was like, why don't you come back over here or whatever? And he just kept getting, and I finally put my computer down and I got up and I walked over to the edge and I was like, Hunter, you're gonna fall, come on. And I guess he kind of stepped down a little, I don't know exactly, he stepped down a little bit. And I don't know if his foot slipped or I didn't see that part. I was just there and I wasn't paying attention, but I guess the rock broke. And he fell back and he was falling, and I was just like, oh my God, I was like, this isn't happening.
I was like right on the edge and I kind of went down, and there was like, it come down, and then I was standing and I grabbed onto a rock, and then it was like a little divot and it just broke off. And when it broke off, I was like, this isn't good. First thing went through my mind, I knew I was falling, and I looked and I seen a tree, and I don't know what made me think jump towards the tree. I don't know, I didn't even second guess it, I just jumped towards it, and then I remember hitting it, and then that's it. I don't remember anything else after that, the fall anyways.
And I was like, I kept thinking, I was like, he's playing a joke on me, because he's like that. And I was like, he's just kidding, that it's not happening. And then he turned and I guess he hit the tree or whatever, and I kept hearing him hit limbs, and I kept hearing him hit stuff, and I was just thinking, this isn't happening. And I sat there for a minute and I was like, that didn't just happen. It took me like a minute and a half to finally realize, like, oh, he actually hit the ground.
When we got off the exit at Atkins, we got a call that some people, one of the ladies, one of our good friends, she had got there and said she could see him, and he was moving around a little bit.
I immediately jumped out of the vehicle, of course, before it stopped. I ran up to the side of the mountain and I seen him laying there, and I couldn't get to him. I just screamed that I loved him, and he answered me back. And so that was good for my heart, because I knew that he was responsive. All in all, it was very scary.
So we continued on over there, and once we got there, Elena's dad had showed up, and her mom, and another friend of mine. So the three of us, and actually Elena's uncle had come from a different way to get to him. And so four of us proceeded to try to get down there to him, and it was probably 15-20 minutes to actually you could see him down there, but we couldn't get to him. So we had to go way down the mountain to find a place to get off. And we got down there and got to him, and when I first got to him, it didn't look good. I mean, I'll just be honest, it did not look good. And first words out of his mouth is, Dad, I done a dumb thing, and don't leave me. I love you. Stay with me. And I said, I won't leave you. You know, whatever happens, I'm here.
I woke up, and it was a weird feeling. It didn't feel real. It felt like I just dreamed about falling off. And I mean, I had known what had happened, but I was on the ground, and my first reaction was I stood up, and I looked up, and I hear Elena screaming at me, and I don't know why. I made her mad. I asked her, I was like, why are you up there? And she was like, what? And I was like, how did I get down here? And she was so mad. She was like, you've got to be kidding me. She's like, lay down. I was like, no. I walked around for like 10 minutes, and I was trying to find a way up. I felt the back of my head, and when I pulled my hand around, it was just covered in blood. And then I remember laying down kind of, and I don't know how long I laid there before anybody got to me. But I remember as soon as they got to me, it was like I woke back up. I mean, I remember everything. And then I guess my dad and them come down there first, and I guess seeing Dad was a pretty big relief. And then there was some other people I'd known, and then the rescue team got down there, and they loaded me up on a board.
I guided the first responders and the rescue team how to get to where we was at, and once they got down there, they kind of give a little bit of stress off me. They let me back up. I think they was worried about me as much as they was worried about him, and they started giving him an IV or a shot or something, and we got him on a stretcher finally, and decided that the route out with him, we wanted to take him back up the top, and it was probably 2.5 hours to try to get him back up the mountain. And once we got to the top, it was overwhelming. You know, there was a ton of people there. Somebody said 100, somebody said 40 or 50. I don't know. There was a lot of people there, and lights, and you know, just a lot of things going on. A lot of family, lots and lots of friends, a lot of support, cops, ambulances, fire departments. You know, it was a big turnout for it.
When I first got done and I got out of the hospital and I went home, I laid in bed for like 2 weeks, just hurting. And then after that, I could barely walk. And I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get to play. And then it just slowly started getting better. So I was like, well, I'm gonna get to play. Well, then they tell me about a lesion I had on my kidney, and I had to go back and get some tests for that. So I was like, well, that kind of put a bummer in it. Then I went back and had it tested, and they cleared me. I was like, okay. Well, then I had fractured my back in 3 places, and we went back to Children's, and I had another checkup on that, and then they cleared me. And then for my head, I cracked my skull, and they cleared me. At this point, I was like, I'm gonna get to play. And after that, it was just a long process of physical therapy, and I had to slowly work my way back into it.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's hard, him being a senior, knowing, you know, this is the last year we're going to watch him on the field. We have a daughter that cheers too, so we'll still be at ball games, and we support Atkins Red Devils, and we've always been here whether we had kids or not. But we're halfway through it, and it's kind of sinking in. She gets a lot more nervous about his back and his hip and stuff than I do. You know, I want to be the tough one and say, rub some dirt on it, it'll be okay. But we all know he's a miracle.
It's a miracle, and I love every minute of it.